Hi, so I'm going to try to work through the first 5 problems on this paper that has two-step equations. And I'm going to be using the slate. It'll be a little different than what we're used to. And my goal is to do 5 problems and then in a separate video do the last 3. So here we go. Problem number 1 is what you would see your most typical problem. It's probably going to be the simplest that we'll give, and it will be the most often one you'll see on your state test. We're going to start with drawing a line down the equal sign and the total line and bringing that equal sign down a couple of times. We're going to find the variable, and once I've identified it, I'm going to box in the entire side of the expression all the way to the equal sign with the variable. Third step says I'm to circle my variable and its multiply and divide partner and bring it down. And so I'm going to bring my 2x down to take care of later. That means I have gotten rid of this part of my box. Now I need to address in the inverse operation of subtract 5, I'm going to add 5. And -5 plus 5 cancel out, but what I do on one side, I need to do on the other. So if I added 5 to the left of my equal sign, I need to add a 5 to the right. So I end up with -12. Now I'm left with 2 times a number is -12, and this means to multiply, and the opposite of multiply is divide. And divide by 2 on both sides, and I'm finally left with x equals, and -12 divided by 2 is -6. And so I think this is going to work good, except my pen is having a hard time writing from my slate. Let's try one more problem, and then I'll decide if I want to switch slates. Okay, so as just like the other, I'm still going to start by drawing an equal sign, line down. I'm going to bring my equal sign down at least twice. These are two-step equations, so I need 2 steps down there. And as I'm setting up, I need to find my variable, box in the entire side of the equation with it, circle the variable and its multiplier divide partner, and bring it down. All of this setup really helps a lot. Now I'm ready to actually start solving. I need to move this 4 2/10 out. So the opposite of plus 4 2/10 is subtract 4 2/10. So I'm going to subtract 4 2/10 from 3 1/2. Well, think about that. I know when I subtract, and I am going to subtract these because my signs are different. This is a positive and that's a negative. When signs are different, you subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. So you can use your calculator and you can put in 4.2 minus 3 1/2 and use 3.5. I'm going to write it here to the side, 4.2 and 3.5, subtract and get 0.7. And my bigger sign was on my negative, so 0.7 negative. Now, my variable still has a divide by 3 attached to it, and I want to get it alone. So the opposite of divide by 3 is if I multiply by 3. Now, I don't have to put this 1 underneath the 3, but when you start learning to multiply by 3, be sure that you write it up high or you write it really big. So multiply by 3 over here and get -2 1/10. So x is equal to -2 1/10. All right, so we're making some pretty good time here. I don't know, as you create the videos, you can't tell how far along you are. And so besides having problems with the slate, it's not too bad. Let's look at the next problem. And let's go with a nice bright red. I'm going to start by drawing my line down the equal sign and a total line, boxing in my expression that holds the variable, circling the variable and its multiplying divide partner, and dropping it down to work with later. Here's a hint, guys. When you have a fraction with your variable, write it up high. I'll tell you why in a minute. Okay, so that's gone. Now I just have this plus 4. That's right. Subtract 4 from both sides. Oh, I forgot to bring down my equal signs. 1 minus 4 is -3. Now here we go. So right here you can see that this fraction, 3/5, being multiplied to x. So if I was to divide by 3/5, fraction divided by fraction, we solve by multiplying the reciprocal. Do you remember that? Even if you didn't, you could go back to Interactive Notebook and look it up, or you can research it, you can Google it. Fraction divided by fraction, you multiply the reciprocal. So that means on both sides, I need to multiply by 5/3. That cancels out, and that cancels out, and it leaves my x by itself. And -3 times 5 is -15. And that's 1 times 3 is 3. And -15 divided by 3 is -5. Now, don't be mad at me, but watch. I'm going to erase all of this because I'm going to actually show you another way to do this that I truly believe is better. So here, remember I said when you write your fraction that it was better, to write your fraction and then put your x up by your 3? Here's why. My kids over the years would much rather prefer to do this in steps. And where they see this divide by 5, they say they know to multiply by 5 on both sides and get 15 and bring down the 3x because they have a whole 3x left because the 5's crossed out. And then divide by 3 to get x. Divide by 3. Oops, that was a -15. And -15 divided by 3 is -5. They would rather do it in 2 steps. And if you would, you're going to see that from me. Either way works. Let's look at problem number 4. 2 4/5 minus x equals 9. I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be easier to change this 4/5 into a decimal. So I'm going to start by boxing in the expression, line and total, bring down the equal signs. 2 4/5 is the same thing as 2.8. And since this is a positive, I'm going to subtract it. Subtract 2.8, and that would be like a 9.0. So that crosses out, and I have nothing but -x. Don't forget to include the symbol in front of that x, because now I have like a negative ghost 1 x. Here, I'm going to subtract, and I'm going to end up with 6.2. And so I have -x equals 6.2. Well, I can't have a -x. So I can multiply by -1 or divide by -1 to make the two negatives. I'm just going to say a negative times a negative is a positive. And I'm going to times this by a negative. 6.2 times a negative is a -6.2. Pretty good, right? You holding in there? If you have any questions, raise your hand. Ask your teacher to come over and explain for you. I love it when my kids specifically say, will you work another problem like this for me? And so that's real handy. Okay, remember, what does it mean when you have a number with a set of parentheses? This means to do what? Multiply. So guess which we're going to do first? That's right. Because we're doing PEMDAS backwards. Instead of doing the parentheses first, we're going to do this multiplication step first. And so we're going to divide by 6 on both sides and end up with n plus 3 equals -1. Then all we have to do is subtract 3 from both sides. End up with n equals -4. Again, if you need help with your integers, you should really be working on your Mastering Math Facts, and there's a lot of fun online games that help you practice your integers. I don't know where our time is at, but let's look maybe at doing problem number 6 before our 10-minute limit is up. Draw a line down the equal sign and a total line. Bring down some equal signs. Oh, 30 seconds. I can't get much done in 30 seconds, but maybe I can get the setup done. There we go. Circle the variable and its multiply divide partner. -3/4. I can put my b up high. All right, I'm ready for this setup for the next video, and thanks for listening.